In today's episode, we get into why a system that only works for you is not actually a system.
When people say like SDR is passive income, I don't know who started that trend. It is not passive income. Absolutely can be, but coming into this brand new, it is not passive income.
And what it takes to build real estate operations that you can hand off, step away from, and trust to run without you. Welcome back to the Freedom Blueprint. I'm Adrienne Green, and today we're with Beth Turner. Now, here we focus on how real estate entrepreneurs break free of the grind and create the freedom they wanted at the start, and Beth is a perfect example of how to do that. So thank you for joining me, Beth. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Beth, for those who don't know you yet, can you give us a quick picture of your short-term rental portfolio? How many properties, what markets, and how did you get started in it?
Well, I have an interesting start, but currently I have just one remaining in Wisconsin. Otherwise, I've had up to 4 of them. They've been in Minnesota, Wisconsin. And then I did a journey of some flip and fixes. I've done the journeys of, I also still own some long-term rentals, but how I got started in real estate was a complete accident. So I am a huge Milwaukee Brewers fan, and my mother and I would go down to Arizona every year for spring training. And for probably like 2 or 3 years in a row, we had host cancel on us last minute. And this was before Airbnb. It was still home away. It wasn't even VRBO yet. And my brilliant mind was like, fine, I'll buy my own condo down here. And I flew down there just thinking I'm just going to look at it. I messaged a realtor online, never met them in person. We went to the very first house and he was like, somebody canceled their building contract. And he's like, if you don't buy this, I will. I was like, I didn't even bring my checkbook. Like, this is the days of the checkbooks, right? And he's like, don't worry, I'll go get you the deposit. He took me to his bank, gave me $1,000 cashier's check. I was like, do you want my ID? Anything is collateral? He's like, oh, you look like good people. And so
Wow.
I bought a condo. Called my mom and I was like, I bought a condo. She's like, I didn't think you took a checkbook. I said, I didn't. And then realized, oh, I don't live here in Arizona. So what am I going to do the rest of the time? And so that's how I became an accidental STR host, is that I was like, well, I guess the best way to do this is to rent it out. And so I did that process and learned hosting in the roughest way of total trial by error. And I did it all remotely. So I lived in Wisconsin and had Phoenix, Arizona is where my condo was.
I love that. I just love this whole story. I'm a baseball fan. Baseball analogies are like my go-to all the time. We'll probably have some in here. And I love how you solved the problem. You solved the problem of like, I want a place to stay. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I assume now you, with everything you do now that we'll get into, you're really helping other people so they don't have to learn through trial and error.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that is realistically pretty much where I'm at in my journey. I think the one thing that people can really realize is that help is totally fine. You do not need to do this on your own. There's a lot of information out there as well, too. So you can get lost in self-helping as well, too. So it's okay to raise your hand and say, hey, I need a coach. I need a mastermind. I just need a group of people I can bounce ideas off of, whatever that might be. But there's a lot of help out there. And how can we help streamline that help is really where it came into and kind of where the journey I'm at now.
I love that. Now, let's continue through your journey. Now, my understanding is you had a system that worked, but it was like 7 different tools held together with duct tape, which we've been there. At what point, kind of like with getting the condo in Arizona, did you realize that this like STR system issue was a problem worth solving?
So I had a bunch of other hosts that I was friends with, and they would ask me to say like, hey, can you set up my system to be like yours? And I was like, guys, bubblegum and duct tape over here. I'm techie enough where like I said, I have 7 different systems. I was using Zapier to connect all these systems. I was using a texting system, a PMS, cleaning system, a CRM, all of these things. But it worked great for me because it all worked and I understood all the little back end. So if one would fail, I could go figure out where it was. And so it worked great for me. But then I realized it wasn't scalable for anybody else. And there's part of like being on top of the mountain and be like, woohoo, I have some really great automation and this is that. But being on that mountain by yourself and seeing your friends struggle is not a fun spot to be in. And so finally, like one of them was like, for their 4th time, they're like, oh, why don't you just build it the way that you built yours? And I was like, build it. Like, I don't know anything about software development. Like, I'm techie enough to like cobble these things together, but like, I can't code. I don't know what I'm doing. And this started 2 years ago. So this was way before the AI world took over. So you really needed to code and needed to be a developer. So I said, all right, we'll figure it out. And we started figuring it out. That's where it came to the journey of how do I help other hosts get back the time that I got without super complex systems, without bouncing between 7 different ones. I'm really duct taping everything together.
Okay. I love that. And I get what you're saying. And I'm curious, as you worked to build this new system, system. What are like the key differences that you identified between that system that works and a system that actually scales?
Yeah. So a system that works is something that it can get you through to like 2 to 3 properties, right? Like, you're still like a guest will text you on this system. They'll say, hey, can I check in early? And you're like, oh, hold on. I got to go look over the other system to see if they can and can't check early. Is the house really ready? So once you start getting to that point of like, well, now I'm still the glue that's holding this together, even though we got duct tape on the bubble gum in the back end, I'm still the glue that's making that operation continue. So once we start hitting that scalable, I had another host ask me to co-host for them. And I was like, oh, like I got to have this be more systematized. I got to be able to not just say, like, for example, they wanted to say, oh, can I come in and make a couple changes? I was like, I give you 7 logins. Like, there's no way. Like, I would love to have you in here. I'm not trying to be hidden. I want to try and be transparent, but girl, you're going to have some fun in this system with me. So it's one of those when I hit the point of I couldn't help others, I also couldn't scale past like 2 or 3 of them because it was still me keeping the ball moving and me making those decisions. That's when I was like, okay, like, and talking to these other hosts, I was like, this is definitely the point where we've got to get some policies in place and then procedures. And when I say that, people usually get scared, right? They're like, I got to create this manual that's step by step by step. And it's just as simple as, like, for example, we had some hot tubs at our properties. And if a hot tub had an issue, the first time it happened, I was like, what do I do? Do I give a guest refund? How much? We just put a policy in place. Like, anytime a guest has an issue, it's $50 a day for $50 a night for a refund. They have things. So it takes the pressure off of like, what is my next step? And then it starts building that system that's scalable. So when we hand those over to our VAs or we hand those over to a property manager, they have that information. So they're not guessing either.
This is really resonating with me. Like, I always view things as like, I don't want to solve the same problem twice. It's okay to have problems.
Yeah.
It's okay to have issues.
100%.
And yet when they happen, how can we improve our system so that next time it happens, it's not a problem. We just automatically know what to do. And so it sounds like you are doing exactly that.
One of the pieces we built was like an FAQ in our system, right? So like, do you supply firewood? Or for example, the girl gas, or is it charcoal? Do we need to bring things? Like those types of pieces. And that stuff is already captured, in the OTAs. So your Airbnbs, your VRBOs of like, oh, they have a grill. Or do we supply them propane, right? So like, it's a gas grill, but do we supply propane? So all those different types of things, to your point, we just need to keep iterating because there's so many things that one little guest will ask, but then now we don't have to worry about answering and tracking down that answer for the next guest.
Yes. And for any short-term rental owner, they can totally resonate with that. Like, I get asked all the time, even though it's in our listing descriptions, what kind of grill it is. Yes.
100%. I just
Until
had it asked
you
yesterday.
really know. Yes. Now, you have something called the handoff test, right? Like, if you had to give your entire operation to someone else tomorrow, what would break first? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I think the handoff test is the biggest thing is how much knowledge is in your head. That is the easiest thing that is testing, right? How many things have you not documented yet or not put a policy in place? So like the things that are going to break are going to be like not having a video walkthrough of your house or like not having a floor plan. So when somebody calls and says, where is this? It's in that person's head that's the only one that's walked that property. Because you can put together, it's a gas grill and we bring propane. But when they say, hey, I can't find where the electrical panel is because we just had a power surge, you got to be able to give them that information. And so those are usually the spots of the handoff test is instantly tells you where your system is not a system and it's really just in your head. And I would say the one thing for me that was the best handoff test is doing it remotely. Like I wasn't there. I wasn't the person that knew where everything was. So I had to go and build those systems. And remote usually scares the crap out of people. And I don't disagree. If you don't have the right kind of, not necessarily processes, but the right team and the right system in place, it can be very scary. It can be very stressful. But if you have the right team and you've got the right systems in place, it is a lot less stressful because it forces you to put those systems in. So you're not the one in the, the cog in the wheel causing the bottleneck.
Beth, I totally agree. When we got our first long-term investment property, yeah, there were a lot of growing pains because we couldn't just run over and handle things ourselves. And yet that's what really prompted me to start running my business more efficiently. So now I can run all my properties while I travel the world with my family. So like we are talking together for sure, speaking the same language. I want to talk more about the tech piece. And yet, even with the tech piece, we do need a team as well. We need someone to run the tech, right? So at what point in a host's growth does bringing in support like a VA, a co-host, a property manager, someone beyond the cleaner and the handyman, someone who's helping with operations, when does that become less optional and more necessary?
It's when you want to change your lifestyle and when you're changing your mindset. It's also when you're scaling. Those are the two kind of pieces. So you might have somebody that got into this as just a side hustle and they really enjoyed it. And now they're like, hey, I just want it to truly be a side hustle. I don't want to grow it and I just want to step all the way out. That's when you're going to start looking at to like, do you want to have somebody co-host it? Do you want to just have a VA? Because when you're also looking at the time, effort, and then the cost of those things too, when it comes down to, hey, do I want to get a property manager or a co-host? Or can I just hire a VA to handle, these cups of onesie twosies because I've built a really great system in place and I just don't want to have any of those items. Or for example, it might even be something of like, I don't want to be the one dropping off the Amazon packages or going to Costco. I just need somebody to go restock. That is not a full-time person also sometimes. So depending on where you are in your lifestyle, like to your point, if you want to travel all the time, you might just need a local college kid, a stay-at-home mom that wants a couple of hours to just be able to go and run and go do those types of things that either a property manager could do too if you hired them, or you want to keep it all in-house. So it becomes less optional when you make a lifestyle change or you scale. Once you start hitting that like 3 to 4 kind of mark from an STR standpoint specifically, that's when you're going to say, all right, do I want to be the one managing these? Do I want to be the one that's getting the guest message and responding to it? We also have great AI tools coming out, in lots of different spaces. At the same time, they're all still tools, right? So how do you want to leverage them? Do you want to not leverage them? And how good are they in all those different spaces? And again, AI is just as good as how much information you give it. So when we talk about, again, building those systems out, if you don't have it documented where your lockbox is and a guest sends you a message at midnight that they can't get in, AI can't tell you where that lockbox is either.
Yes, I agree completely. Now, as somebody starts to grow with a team, they start to get someone else in there to do some of this work. What tasks or responsibilities are you seeing hosts hold on to the longest? And what do you think is behind that reluctance to let go?
But there's probably two depending on where they are in their journey. I think one of the things as hosts that we don't realize is we're running a business because it always feels like a side hustle, no matter how big we are or small we are. Like until we fully quit our jobs, like it's not really a business, but it really is. And I think that's a mind shift set that really has to happen. But like, for example, guest messaging and bookkeeping are always the two that I see hosts hold on to. And guest messaging is purely for the fear of I'm going to send the wrong message. So for example, we had a guest that was coming in for a funeral and like I had anxiety of like, I hope my happy automated messages don't go out, right? Like, welcome to you. We hope you have a great time. Like until you have really good systems in place for that, because your normal guest automations will do that. They'll just send out we look forward to having you. Or for example, you have to then maybe dial down your happiness in some of your pieces so it can be more broad. So when you're building those automated messages, thinking of people that are coming for a birthday and a funeral, can you get that message across both ways? Well, sometimes not at all. And so it's handing off those types of guest messaging that I think is one of the biggest holdouts, that they feel like they're going to miss something. I'm going to send something that is not personalized, or it's going to come across as I kicked out an automated message and I don't care. So I think a lot of the guest messaging, and then also making sure things don't get missed, I think is also from a guest messaging standpoint. For example, the guest that sends a message at 11 o'clock midnight, I want to I better be up all night to make sure that they're getting checked in. I'll check the cameras to see if they're here yet. So those types of things, those guest messaging, and then bookkeeping, because everybody wants to hold on to their finances, but nobody really wants to do them either, right? Like,
Right.
oh, I'll have my weekly bookkeeping meeting with myself. And then it's like, I could do so many other things. But at the same time, I don't want to hand that off because somebody else will be in my finances. It's one of those double-edged swords. So it kind of depends on how comfortable you are with your finances. Again, anytime you outsource, it forces you to have a system and kind of clean up your ways, right? Because if I'm using my personal credit card for everything, including personal and business, that is harder to hand off to an accountant or a bookkeeper. And so it, again, kind of resets and makes you have to think about your processes and what you're doing and how you're doing.
Those are so true. Both of those. I'm like, the guest messaging, I know when I like get a new VA, I'm always like, you draft the messages and I check them before you send them.
Yeah.
Until we know that everything is good, because you can't undo them, right? That's my concern there.
It's
And
not
I
like
have seen,
iPhone where you can undo that message.
Yes. And I've seen behind the scenes with so many entrepreneurs, it's so funny because unless somebody has someone else doing their bookkeeping, they're not up to date. And yet entrepreneurs hold on to it, just like you said. But I'm like, dude, just give it to someone else, right? Just make a system where you take a photo of the receipt and you email it to them, or you put it in a Google Drive, and they handle 98% of it with no extra input by you. And you're going to be able to get an updated profit and loss and balance sheet and everything once you do that. And it's so powerful when you have that.
Yeah. And one thing you mentioned too is the VAs, right? So we also leverage them. There's always conversations of, offshore, bringing people in, I only want to hire local. And realistically, the one thing you have to think about is everybody is a person and you are helping them in any way that you're doing that, right? So for example, when we lift up others, we help them lift up all the people around them too. So we have some people from a software standpoint, we have people offshore. So we've got some in Bulgaria, Zimbabwe. We have some VAs in the Philippines. We have our QAs all over the place. It's not necessarily like, oh, I'm just trying to save costs and I don't want to stay, I don't want to, made in the USA. It's none of those things is not always the driver in those cases. It's also, how do I get this done efficiently and effectively? And then how do I also still help the people around me, even those people are not physically around me? So for example, when you talk about the VAs, you set up your people, you set up your systems, and then you trust, but verify, right? Like, and that's that next step of like everybody, think of everybody. We all think that we're the best at everything we do, right? Like for the bookkeeping, right? Like I'm like, well, I'm the only one that can do it, but then I don't do it.
Right.
So we all, I think, overinflates our capabilities. And also we also underinflate our time and how much we really have to knock out some of these things. So same thing, when we onboard anybody, it's just like anything. You give the training wheels. Think of you changing jobs, right? Like if I change for something as basic as I'm going to go be a bartender, they don't just let you sign up and say, hey, go throw you into the weeds the first day, right? They still give you some of those. They have you shadow, they have you train, they have these pieces in place to make not only just the guest at the restaurant happy or the guest at the STR, is to also set their people up for success. And so there's two kind of one stone to kill two birds, right? You're not only making the guest and the client experience better, but you're also making the person and the employee experience better as well.
If you're a real estate entrepreneur trying to scale while doing everything yourself, there's a better way. The Time and Freedom Starter Pack gives you the exact first steps to reclaim hours each week with real support, including what to hand off, where to start, and simple tools you can put into place right away. Download it for free at adriennegreen.com/starter pack. Now let's get back to the episode. I love that because yes, I think especially people who get into entrepreneurship, they get into real estate investing and they don't have any business training. They don't think about onboarding. They don't think about that. They're just like, oh yeah, they're going to come and know what to do. And they don't. All right. So we've talked about the people piece. Now let's talk about the tech piece, because I would like to hear more about SimpliHost, this platform that you built to help solve the 7 different tools with duct tape and bubblegum issue.
Yeah. So, again, we kind of started it because I really wanted to help. It just comes down to that. Like I said, the system that I had worked for me completely, but I couldn't help other people get that time back. And so one thing that, we realize is that, yes, everybody has we hear the term tech stack sometimes in the tech world of like, here's my tech stack or here's my system stack, right? That even though those things work in regard of my PMS will send my reservations to my cleaning system will see that, and then let's create the cleaning task. There's still time and loss bouncing between those systems, right? Like we hear back in the day, remember when you put it on your resume, I'm a multitasker, and that was seen as great things. There's so much research now that multitasking is really not a great thing, right? When you can focus and just stick to one thing, and especially in the digital world that we're in, right? I might get a text message from my guest in my one system. They're asking me to check in early while I'm about to slide over to my PMS to see when they are right as the house ready, or do we have a back-to-back? I get an Instagram notification, right? Or I get something else. Now I get distracted for that second. Wait, did I? And especially I have ADHD, so that is very distracting for me. But we also lose our efficiency. We also just lose some of our time bouncing between those. So for example, right now, if I wanted to see in my current 7 system, my previous 7 application system, a guest would send a text message, say, can we check in early? I would get that text message. Keep in mind, we're always on our phones. So I'm traveling while I'm on this, right? So I see this app. Oh, okay, hold on. I'm going to swipe that close. I'm going to go find my PMS. I'm going to find the calendar. Oh, I got to find the person that just sent me the message because the PMS doesn't know who just sent me the message. And I say, oh, great. Yes, we can check in early. Okay, so then I got to go back to the text system, send the message. And then now if I have a VA that is managing my PMS, they don't know that I send a text message over the text message system because they don't talk to each other. Only high level talking. And so you start introducing all of these layers of inefficiency as well as these siloed pockets of information. So for example, the funeral example I had, I was like, I swear my guest told me that they were coming for a funeral. I couldn't find it in my PMS. And I was like, oh, I need to make sure that the wording is changed. I couldn't find it in my PMS because they had texted me in my texting system. So now, for example, if our EA wanted to, or I said, hey, go through and just make sure everybody's good from a funeral standpoint, or we have holidays coming up, let's coin in, update some of those messages, they still don't get the full picture. So we lose out on, yes, we have the systems that get us there and we're happy to the point of everything is automated, right? And this tech stack really gets us there, but we still lose a lot bouncing between those different systems.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention that if you're going to give that person early check-in, now you have to go to like your digital lock, if you have one of those, and change when their code starts working on top of it too.
100%. Yeah, exactly. I go and send them a message, you're good to check in. And they say, well, at what time? And I say, does noon work for you? And they say, actually, can we do 11? I have now bounced back and forth 4 to 5 times. And then, like to your point, they finally say 11. Then I go to my locks and I update it, or I go to my PMS that will update it, but I'm still again in multiple systems.
Right. So what does SimpliHost do differently?
Yeah. So it combines that whole scenario into one system, right? As well as a couple of other areas. So if a guest says, hey, can I check in early? There's a couple of data points that I need. I need to know, is there a back-to-back? Is the house ready? And is there any other pieces that I need to know about this? Do we have like a maintenance man coming during this time? Is anything happening right before that? So now when I get that message, number one, the text message comes into the same thread that they're coming in from Airbnb as, so I can see the whole conversation in one spot. If I say, oh yes, I can see that now in the top, right-hand corner of my side, it says, oh, the house is vacant clean. We are good to go because it says that the cleaner finished their checkout task and their checkout cleaning, and it updated the status of the house automatically. And so then the last thing I can do is say, oh, instead of a 3 p.m. check-in, it's going to be noon. I update the time and it's automatically sends out the lock notifications to the lock to update that to noon as well. And then I can go still all within the same screen, send a message to yes, say, yeah, we're good for noon.
Awesome. That is a lot easier.
And that's all without leaving one screen, which is to me is even just the better part. I'm not even bouncing between multiple screens in the system. I'm in one screen that whole time because we try to present that information all in one area for those types of scenarios.
So now I can already see some differences with what you've built versus like Hospitable, which I use right now as a PMS,
Yes.
which does a lot, but it doesn't include text or anything like that. So
Yes.
for somebody, and the other one I know a lot of people use is Owner Res. So could
Yes.
you kind of do like a heads up of like comparison Hospitable/Owner Res versus what you've built with SimpliHost?
Yeah, absolutely. So example 2, I also was on Hospitable. That was my PMS, right? Because it comes with a lot of those pieces that I needed. Another area that we did that I really struggled with is that we handwrite the welcome notes to all of our guests, and there was no spot for me to put that in Hospitable, or I had to create a separate task, and it still was all manual in doing those pieces. So for example, when I'm looking at the system, we have like special instructions, welcome message, and internal notes. So that is presented to a cleaner as well. When they go to their cleaning task, they can see when is the next upcoming guest, are there any special notes, what's the welcome basket message, those types of things. And so right now you have to utilize both Hospitable and Turno for that, for their cleaning checkouts, as well as then to create a task or do something manual to send a welcome message. So the combination of those types of things are where you built in the same functionality within Turno, such as like requiring photos, a full checklist, reference photos. So if I need to say, hey, this is what the kitchen should look like after you're done, you can do all those pieces. So we really combine true built-in cleaning, inspections, maintenance checklists, and that task functionality into one system. One of the things that we also hear struggle a little bit is that there's not enough device connectivity in some of these PMSs. And so we partnered with another company called Seam, and they connect to over, I think, like 150 locks and also a lot of different thermostats, even, for example, like the noise monitors of like Minute and Noise Aware. So you can check the battery statuses of and set thresholds for all of your different noise monitoring. So again, all of that being in one system.
Yeah, because I will say right now, I have to, like, if there is an issue or I'm checking something, I'm going between Hospitable and whatever our system is for our cameras. Like, yeah.
The one thing that's also coming down the pipeline is Ring cameras are coming in through this company of Seam too. So we can then kind of see, how your battery's doing. Right now, I still manage that in a separate system, right? I'll get a message from Ring saying, 716 front door, battery low. And then I have to remind something to the cleaner to send them a message to do that. We're hoping to automate all that as well too in the future. Even like garage door openers are included in some of these devices as well too, right? So if a guest calls you and says, hey, I'm having a problem with the garage code, I can't get in. If you have some of those smart, I think it's a Genie and I can't think of the other one, but they have the ability to have these smart devices that open up garage doors. Again, from that side panel, just the button, open up the garage door. Even from the standpoint too of a guest with a lock. Sometimes guests will try the same code and they don't hit the one button that says the enter, right? Or the check mark button. And sometimes those codes, the keypads will then freeze out on them. And they'll be like, you've tried too many times. Just beep, 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 beep. It's just going to beep at them. Same thing when we're in our inbox and a guest calls. I can push an unlock and an unlock button, and it just automatically unlocks the door for them and lets them in.
That is nice. I love this. Now, how long has this product been out? Like, how long ago did you launch?
It is new. I think we launched, gosh, if I should know this off the top of my head, but we only launched like a month and a half ago. So we are new to the space. Yeah, we're very new space. But at the same time, it's been a 2-year journey of love to get us here. So it is not necessarily something that just like came up. I always love the overnight successes, right? And it's like 16 years of overnight success. And so it is fairly new. I have our founding members active right now. So we are fully available to anybody who wants to sign up and come and join. Right now, everybody's being onboarded by me as well, because I want to get as much feedback as we can into the system. We are updating all of our co-hosting tools as well. So for those that co-host that want owner portals, owner statements, we will have those up in the next couple of weeks as well to redo what we currently have from the feedback we've already got. And I think you had also mentioned another system of owner res. I was just talking to a co-host yesterday, and she helps new hosts determine, do they need a property manager or can they still just self-manage? And she also, same thing, she goes, depends on if they're just going to do it themselves. There's systems that are just have very high learning curve, and owner res is one of those, that it's a high learning curve. And so if you're just going to be doing one and you're just doing it for tax purposes, or you just kind of want to enjoy it, building out a really robust system is a little too much. And then same thing, we talk about hospitable, there might be some pieces that they would really like, of like not having to go to Schlag, not having to also go do this. And so we're kind of bridging the gap between those two, of not having as steep of a learning curve, and then also still having a robust system that still, again, does not require that steep learning curve.
The not having a steep learning curve, it like speaks to my like core. I was actually just looking for one of our other businesses. I was just looking at like accounting options, and one I was like, this is interesting, and then all the reviews were like, steep learning curve, you need to like probably pay someone to build it out for you, and I was like, eliminated
Right.
no way.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, you're hitting all the right spots there. So if somebody is interested in learning more about SimpliHost, or they're interested in connecting with you, Beth, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So we have the typical Facebook, Instagrams, right? So we're at SimpliHost INC, and it's SimpliHost with an I. We are still, nobody owns the Y, but we're trying to get that website so we can at least direct people there. So we're SimpliHost with an I. And then you can also get a hold of me personally at Beth M. Turner on Instagram as well as Facebook. So I'm always happy to help get the feedback. And if we ever see spots where I think the next space that we might move into is a little bit of the MTR space, because I've also done MTR, and there is not really a system that juggles both STR and MTR well. And so we're always looking to say, hey, where's everybody going? What's everybody's next steps? You know, we have the base, feature of a feature. Everybody can, like, hospitable, owner res, all of this, we can go toe to toe on features every day and all day, right? Like, from a separation of what is different from us versus this group or those pieces, it's usually going to be, how do we treat our customers? How do we want to keep evolving and growing? And then how do we actually get there? Is it like, hey, thank you so much for giving your feedback, throw it in the back bin, right? Or how do we get that actual, hey, we hear you, we're hosts ourselves, and we have this really deep connection to the host community, and how can we keep that moving? And that's, I think, the things that are going to separate us from some of the other PMSs as well. But also just seeing this from a true holistic, I don't want to be in 7 systems anymore, guys.
Right. Yes. Yeah, somebody who's actually done it themselves, and not like so many things in our world now are owned by private equity, right? Maybe they were started by someone who cared, but now they're owned by private equity, and it's all about cutting costs, making the multiple better to, sell, IPO, something like that.
Exactly.
So that's something I see in a lot of the businesses I deal with. And so I love this, and being able to work with somebody who's like in it themselves.
Yeah, we call it in the SaaS world, so what is it? Software as a service. We call it bootstrapping, right? This is where it's just us, right? There's no big investor that's came in and given us. We didn't do rounds of funding or anything like that. It is just me and our funds doing this, and also just a passion to want to be able to help, and a passion to want to continue to create better systems to get people to buy back their time. We want to be able to help rental owners manage their properties without their properties managing them.
Right. Oh, totally. And that's what we're here for, because so many people get into real estate for freedom, and then they don't get it. They get another job, more things to tie them down, less vacation time. So I love that you're helping counter that. That's what we're all
Yeah, I
about.
would say the only thing that I would part with, like, too, of like when people say it's one of the biggest misnomers I think out there right now is like SDR is passive income. I don't know who started that trend. It is not passive income. It can be. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely can be. But coming into this brand new, it is not passive income. There's a lot of information out there. You have to set up these systems. Once you get these systems, it can be very passive, but it's not day one out of the box, day 30 out of the box that you're just passive getting the mailbox money that we hear about in long-term rentals. It is not passive income, but there are plenty of ways for us to help get that to passive income.
Love that. That is definitely, yes, resonating. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Beth, and thank you to our listeners. That is a wrap on today's episode of The Freedom Blueprint. Please join me again next week for another amazing episode with another awesome guest.